Hi there. So I recorded a similar class to this just a few minutes ago. I'll be posting it up to my website. But it was such a nice practice, so I wanted to record a longer session for my friends over at the Y. So this class is for you. I just happen to be wearing my Y clothes. So I wanted to post this up for all of you that I've been missing over at the Y. This is a short practice. It's about a 30-minute practice. It's deceivingly difficult. So it's simple but powerful practice. It's inspired by a style of yoga called Katonah Yoga, which I've been studying now for the last 6 or 7 months. It's really transformed my ideas about yoga and the usefulness of yoga as it's applied to our lives. So if you're watching this, which you will be watching it into the future because I'm not doing this live, there's a mantra that I'd like for you to play. If you have a Spotify account, I will link this up when I post this video. If you have a Spotify account, the mantra that I'm playing is you can type this in, Expand into Intuitive Knowing by Jagdish. And I'm going to play this mantra very quietly so that I can hear it. But it's a healing mantra, so hopefully it will help to add a little bit more zhuzh to your practice today, if you're watching this later. So let's get started. For this practice, you're going to need 2 blocks if you have them. If you don't have blocks, you can just get creative with what you have in your house. Good. And another thing that I'd like for you to have is either 2 big pillows or a bolster and a blanket or a few blankets. I have my blanket folded in thirds because I find that to be a nice, stable and even and comfortable base. So if you have those, go ahead and grab those. If you'd like a minute to grab your phone for music, feel free. And I'll go ahead and get started. So I'll give you a minute to grab some blocks, some water, anything that you might need to use the bathroom, etc. And then we'll really get started. So please make your way first onto your hands and your knees, right? And I'd like for you to sit back on your heels. And if this is uncomfortable in your knees, you can place that, set up the block. You can either place the block right underneath your sitting bones, or you can place a blanket or bolster right underneath your heels. So a couple things to note here. If you think of your body like a piece of crisp origami paper, the hips are like that first crisp fold that you make. So when you're setting yourself up in this pose, I'd like for you to sort of move the sitting bones away so you get a nice connection between your heels or your feet and your sitting bones. The base of your pelvic floor is sort of plugged in as close to the ground as possible. So you can't really see this in my black pants, but there's a nice crisp hinge at my hips, right? For those of you where the knees are uncomfortable, you can sit up a little bit higher. The fold is still going to be there. And that fold is really what we're after in this pose. So we're going to come into child's pose, but before you do, think about keeping that nice crisp fold at the half. So you're not going to just land here. You want to move the sitting bones back and find the length of the spine. So one way you can do that is by taking your hands over your head and making a frame. So the right hand is going to go to the left, the left hand is going to go to the right. And there is a sort of square or rectangular shape that's happening here, right? So think about plugging yourself down, lifting yourself up, and imagine your upper body sort of catching the wind and the breath. Right, so from here, it's going to make this transition a little bit more challenging, but you'll feel that hinge at the hips. So the sitting bones are going to move back, You're gonna reach the hand forward, belly's pulling in so there's integrity, integrity, integrity. And then when you can't really hold yourself any further, you bring your hands down and walk the hands forward. So it's a bit of an active pose, but there's a deep hinge, a deep fold in the hip, okay? So go ahead and take a few deep breaths here with that deep fold and the hip. So this gives a little bit more space for your lungs. And while you're here, I'd like for you to find your center. So when we have this sort of deep hinge at the hip, it's not just about personal effort, it's about technique. So take another moment here, arms outstretched, elbows lifted. If this is too much to hold, it's not comfortable, not soft, you can place a block right underneath your elbow and create a little bit of a back bend. So go ahead and look forward. Walk the hands forward, walk the hips back or move the hips back in space. And then go ahead and make your way onto your hands and your knees. And we'll come into downward facing dog. So you'll feel that hip now opening. So to get into downward facing dog, I'd like for you to start with your wrists. So you're creating a right angle in the wrist. The reason for the right angle in the wrist is because the right ankle is a very stable angle. It's reliable, and it's in so many parts of our body. So one way you can measure this out is by placing a block, or whatever you have, water bottle works, right behind your elbow. So for me, this creates a little hinge in my elbow. So what I need to do is actually bend my elbow just a little bit, so I have that angle. So once you have that angle, the right angle in the wrist, you can extend the right and left leg back. And stay here. So feel your feet rooting down, feel the legs strong. Now keep your hands and feet just as they are, lift the hips and come into downward facing dog. So if this downward facing dog feels different for you, like maybe it's too long, go ahead and make a slight adjustment here. And then once you have that slight adjustment, come back to plank. And then make a little slight adjustment until you find yourself evenly balanced, right? So think again of the hips, that deep hinge in the hips. So just like in child's pose, we're gonna move our hips back, back, back. Go ahead and bend your knees, right? This will bring you a little bit more into your legs, a little bit out of your shoulders. So feel this hinge at the hip. There's a folding that's happening. And then as we come into plank, there's an unfolding. So we're not going past, we're sort of just going back to the straight edge. So fold, unfold, fold, unfold. Right, go ahead and come back into downward facing dog. Slight bend in the knee for buoyancy. Working towards a 60-degree triangle. So really reach the sitting bones back and feel the folded hips. So slight bend in the knee. And then we're going to move back and forth from downward facing dog to plank so that we can experience this idea of folding and unfolding. So go ahead and inhale, come forward. Exhale back. Begin to move at a pace that feels good for you. So we breathe in and out. We're going to do this for a while to build some heat, to feel this folding and unfolding. So I'd like for you to look forward. Where are you going? Know where you're going. And as you're moving forward and back, I'm not sure I'll be able to talk while doing this. Think about your center. So oftentimes it's helpful to give ourselves a measure. So we have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So we're not just thinking, oh God, how long is this gonna last? Even though that's something we're having to work with right now. So we're going to give ourselves a measure of 10. So you get to control the length and how long that 10 takes. And once you've done 10, you'll rest. So begin when you're ready. So if you really hate this, you can breathe a little quicker and it'll be done a little faster. If you really love this, your breath will be bigger. I'm not loving this. Go ahead and rest. Do the child's pose. So that measure gives us a boundary. We know how long it's going to be. This gives us a sense of safety and peace as we're all experiencing the opposite of this. All right. So find yourself in child's pose. Come onto hands and knees. Give yourself a minute to recover. And come into down dog. So now we know our down dog, we're nice and warm. Now, think about your shoulders. Think about your hips. Align shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, shoulder to hip, and shoulder to hip. So you're creating integrity and a frame. And so see if you can find your energetic center. You can look forward, but don't look too far up, right? If you want, you can look behind you, or you can look forward. It's your choice. All right, so while you're here, this will be a test of your center and a test of integrity. I'd like for you to take your right hand off the ground. See if you can still keep the shoulders level, the hips level, and then rest. Recalibrate, notice, and then the same thing with the opposite side. Try to keep the shoulders in integrity. One way you can strengthen the shoulders by drawing the armpit towards the heart. So you're drawing on the strength of the upper back, muscles of the shoulder. So I'm not terribly in integrity here. I'm a little bit off center. I'm having to work a little bit harder. But go ahead and release and rest. Child's pose, hips move way, way back. Reach the hands forward. Keep the elbows lifted and walk the hands forward. All right, so come onto the hands and your knees, please. Come back to downward facing dog. Now, I'd like for you to walk your hands back about a hand print. Bend your knees, shoulders are open. Take your right hand and see if you can clasp your left heel. So the hand is like a mitt, the heel is like a ball. So make contact the best that you can. And we're stretching the right side body. So integrity in the shoulders, shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip. Try not to go all out just to get the hand in the right position. Maybe you need to adjust. Maybe you need to take the next step instead of the full on step. So you can tell that you're a little out of integrity when you're having to work really, really hard, right? I'm having to work hard in this pose. So I'm thinking to myself, how can I bring more integrity to my pose? I bend my knees more. I lengthen my heart forward more. Maybe I begin to twist and to open. And this should feel really good once you have that contact in the shoulder. Right? Go ahead and release to the opposite side. Same thing. Left hand's the mitt. Right hand's the heel. Find your integrity. Stretch the side of the body that feels good. Hold the center. Bend the knees. Bring a little bit more weight into the heels. Good. And then release. Go ahead and come onto your hands and your knees. Nice job. So we're going to take just a moment through cat and cow. Can you come up on your wrists, or rather your fingertips? And then see if you can come into down dog with your hands on the fingertips, just to see. Just try it. Good. All right. So please step the right foot forward. I'd like for you to lunge into a right angle. So my camera angle makes this look a little bit different, but you can do the same thing you did with the blocks on the wrist right behind the heel. So you're creating this stable, reliable right angle. Now locate your hips. Your hips are at 3 and 9 o'clock. If you go too far, lower back feels it. Left hip flexor feels it. If you go too far, you feel it more and more in the quad. So you want to find a point of balance. The back foot is your anchor. The front knee is your rudder. Another point, you want to feel as if you're on a bicycle and your feet are on the pedals. So if you have your feet too close to the center, you'll be wobbly. So I'd like for you to really have each foot on its own side. Okay? So now the back foot is the anchor, the front knee is the rudder. This now becomes the ballast. It's the center. And then the arms reach up, and that becomes the sail. So as they say, a piece of you is anchored. Right? A piece of you is moving into the future, into your potential. A piece of you is lifting up into a way of being that's higher. And again, another piece of you is staying anchored in your past. Go ahead and release your hands down. Just straighten the front leg, and we'll come right back into the pose again. So this time, arms, back foot's anchored, front knee's your rudder, feet are on either side, arms are lifting like a sail catching the wind. Now I'd like for you to take your hands are mitts, place them behind the back of your head's a ball, and the same thing. So anchor into your back foot, front knee is guiding you forward, elbows are close in, lifting the heart, and breathing. So when we approach the poses in this manner, we're trying to sort of plug ourselves in so the electricity runs freely. Today I'm feeling a little like jittery. The flow of my electricity isn't running smoothly. So I'm having to work a little extra hard. Okay. So go ahead and release your hands down. Now you're going to need your setup for this. Pillow works just fine. 2 or 3 pillows you may need. So I'm going to give you a moment to gather some props. And of course you can do this without the setup, but it's so nice to have the extra support. So we're going to come into a pigeon pose on this right side. So you'll find this nice right angle in the front ankle. Your hips are sort of right over the center, so you have an awareness of the center of your body. Right? We're going to come into pigeon pose, so the right foot's going to walk over towards the left side of the mat, and the knee's going to come down. So you want to sit yourself squarely on your setup. Right? And you might need to adjust for a moment. So same as before with the lunge, the back foot is your anchor, your front knee is your rudder. And then the arms come up as a sail. So if you're having to struggle, if you're squeezing the back hip, give yourself a little bit more height. Maybe add a second blanket just to see how it feels. So we want this hinge at the hips. We want the knee higher. We want the knee lower so we have the space to open. This is why we have this nice support. right? So back foot's anchoring. Arms are reaching. And then I'd like for you to find the length. So you're really going to have to anchor into the back foot as you come forward. Anchor, anchor, anchor. I can only go so far, so I'm going to bring my hands down. And then I'd like you to walk your hands forward just as we did in child's pose. Feeling the same hinge at the hip, reaching forward, reaching forward, reaching forward. And a really nice thing that you can do that I just learned this week, if you have them, you can place the blocks underneath your armpits so they kind of hold you up so you can feel this back bend in the heart. So you'll walk forward, situate your blocks right underneath your armpits. Once you get that, it feels a little strange at first, but once you get it, you'll be like, oh, it's so nice, right? Now, think about your back foot as the anchor. Front knee is the rudder. Spine is the sail, heart's lifting. And feel this hinge in the right hip. So think about your center. Think about your hip points at 3 and 9 and adjust from there. So anything under you that you can make contact with is going to equal stability. You can release your head if you'd like. You can place another prop at this lovely roller that I can slide right in the middle to support my heart, or alternatively to support my head. So experience your center here. Anchoring into the back foot. And then gently release this. And then walk your hands back. And now take the back leg and bring it around. Okay. So we're going to come into a variation of fire log pose. So you'll take your right foot and bring it forward. Situate yourself so you feel that contact again with the ground, the sitting bones, the base of the pelvic floor, right? And then I'd like for you to keep this right angle in your ankle. So you don't want to sickle your ankle or have a loose ankle, right? Nice and strong, nice and stable. Okay, so you want this wrinkle-free ankle. The left foot's going to be placed on top. So if your knees are high, like mine, you don't want to press the knee down because it creates strain in the hip. It doesn't keep that nice, clear, clean fold. So if this is the case, you can set yourself up quite a bit higher, right? Adding a block, adding a second blanket, for example, so that you have that ability to have the knees below the hips. So here I am, I could be sitting up here, right? My knee's a little bit higher, but since I'm sitting up and I have that plug-in, that connection with the ground, I'm able to feel that nice crisp hinge at the hip, and it's a little bit more easy to access, right? So if the knees are up, sit higher. We want to keep this nice crisp fold in the hips. So the left foot's on top. There's a right angle in the knee, in the ankle. And then I'd like for you to make the frame. So left hand to the elbow on the right side, right hand to the elbow on the left side. Feel yourself anchor through your sitting bones. Feel the lungs lift, feel the heart lift. And now we're going to move into a fold, right? So the sitting bones are going to have to move way, way back. Keep reaching, keep reaching, keep reaching. When you feel like you've had enough, you can come back up and then keep reaching. So the sitting bones are moving back. Literally the butt, the rear end is moving behind you. So reach, 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 reach. You want to reach into the future as far as you've reached into the back. into the past. Keep reaching, a little bit more effort in the future. Good, and then you can release the hands and fold all the way down, keeping that hinge at the hip. So maybe you don't go this far, right? Maybe you go further. Maybe you grab the blocks to support your heart, but my hips are way back, right? My ankles are strong. My hips are way, way back. I'm gonna put a block right underneath my sternum. And then you should definitely feel this pose. All right, we won't stay here for long. Go ahead and come on up. Take this top foot, bring it back around. See if you can get yourself back into original position just to recalibrate, refeel, and then come into down dog. In down dog, we reflect on what just happened. So we'll take the left foot forward now. So lunge into a right angle. Handy setup is here. It's good structure. It's already there. So we'll start back foot grounded, feet as if you're on pedals, center, the deep awareness of your center. So find your energetic center in this pose. Imagine yourself on a spit, right? So back foot is your anchor, front knee is your rudder, arms, upper body is sail. Right, so see if you can find your energetic center in this pose. You don't want to go too far into the hip, so you may need to adjust. Good, and then go ahead and interlace your hands. Lift up a little bit more. Hold your head as if you're holding a ball. And then gently release. So I had to work really hard. I'm having to work extra hard today. I'm having to rely a little bit more on my personal effort because my technique requires just a little bit more refinement. And this comes with practice. Some days you're refined and other days you're just a little bit off, right? And that's all part of the process and the practice. So go ahead and walk your left foot now over towards the right side of your mat. Find your center. Hips are at 3 and 9 o'clock. There's a nice hinge at the hip, so you're supported. There's a wrinkle-free ankle. Back foot's the anchor, front knee's the rudder, and then find the sail. So I'd like for you to reach the arms up to the sky. And you don't have to come all the way up, right? If you're working extra effort, maybe you use a little bit more support, right? Work on finding your energetic center first and letting that be your measure for the integrity of the pose. You get to decide how far you want to go. And internally, we know, right? We know if we're working too hard. We know if we're overstriving. We know if we are overtrying. We know when we're lazy. Like, these are all things that we get to experience while practicing the practice of self-knowledge. Okay. So from here, I'd like for you, without the arms coming up like we did on the first side, feel this nice hinge in the hip. Anchor through your back foot. Walk the hands forward. Have your blocks to support the back bend right underneath your shoulders. So, my son B has a condition called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and he falls down a lot, and we have to sort of pick him up here underneath his armpits because it's a stable place where we can hold him also here up under the ribs. So This is like really nice to have that support lifting you up and holding you up so that your heart can stay open. So it takes a minute to kind of get it just right, but once you get it just right, it's so nice. You can release your head. So we're looking for, always trying to find a bit of a back bend in our poses. The back is like our memory. The front is our potential, and as we age, our back gets more and more and more memory and less and less and less potential. So see if you can counter with the potential of coming into the future. So when you're really young, your back's a little bit more flexible. When you're getting older and older, the back begins to round because there's more and more memory. So think about your hips at 3 and 9. Find the center of yourself. Good. Go ahead and walk back. There's a really nice twist that we can add, but we'll do that at another time. A lot into the hips. And then you'll take the back foot. First, get yourself plugged in. So the sitting bones are rooted, the base of the pelvis floor is sort of like plugged in to your ground. Wrinkle-free ankle. If the knees are high, sit up higher so you can keep this crisp fold in the hip. And then we'll make the frame. Opposite frame as before. You'll know that it's right because it's awkward, and it's okay if it is the same as the first time. So first of all, feel the anchor. Then feel the lift. Always find a bit of a back bend. So when we're sitting up here, we don't think so much about the hips. So we're gonna keep the fold. So move the sitting bones back. You're gonna begin to feel it in the right hip. So only go so far as you can. Right? If this is enough, you stop. Right? If you can go forward and you're in your integrity, then you can keep reaching, 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 walking the hands forward, sending the hips back. Keep the right angle in the knee and the ankle. And find the center of yourself. So go ahead and stay there as long as you'd like. Come on out when you're ready. And go ahead and make your way back into the pigeon pose. Whoosh. 3 and 9 o'clock. Feels a little different now. Back foot is anchored. Front knee is guiding you. Heart is lifted. And then down dog. To recalibrate and to reflect. I'm going to be kind of lazy in my dog here. And then I'd like you to come onto your knees and sit on your ankles. Okay. So same thing, creating the hinges at the hip. So there's a fold in the knee, there's a fold in the hip. Sitting up nice and straight. If this is too much on the knees, you can place the blanket right under the fold and have a seat here. You can also place a block kind of right underneath your sitting bones so that you'll have that same hinge at the hip. Right? So you don't want to kind of like dumping in. You want to keep this nice crisp fold at the hip. So I'm going to use my blanket. So first start by plugging yourself down. Feel contact, sitting bones, heels and feet. Hinge at the hip, lifting through the heart. In this style of yoga that I referenced, Katonah yoga, there's no shavasana at the end because there's an idea that we're always in this continuous flow There's always this process of releasing and letting go through each pose, through each moment. So we experience Shavasana as we go. But I love Shavasana, so I'm going to give you that option at the end. So I'd like for you to sit up on your heels, plug yourself in, close your eyes, and simply feel with eyes closed. So sometimes I get a little quiet in my voice when I'm listening internally. So I'm going to say that again. Feel. Simply feel with eyes closed your body. The electricity moving through, the aliveness, the potential fatigue, and simply notice. Great. So last little thing before Shavasana. So I'd like you to sort of come forward and back, opening up the hips forward and back. So we're sort of just like stirring the pot, so to speak. So just do this a few times, forward, back with the breath, forward, back. Bringing some fluidity back into the hips. They've been hinging and holding a lot. So we're sort of moving the joint, stirring the joint. And then you'll do the same thing here. Right? It's best to close your eyes during this so that you don't feel self-conscious. But think about yourself stirring your own pot. 3 and 9, 3 and 9. Tailbone, pubic bone, about 4 corners. You're trying to get around yourself, get around the center. Good. Go ahead and take that movement in the opposite direction. Really best to do this with eyes closed so that you can really feel the center. You're getting around yourself. You're practicing moving into your circumference. You're feeling round in your way of being, round in your thinking, well rounded. Good. And some of us have some sharp edges we need to refine. And this is like we're stirring the pot, we're stirring things up. And then let everything settle. Close the eyes again. And that should feel really, really nice. So you're welcome to end here or make your way into Shavasana. You're welcome to stay in Shavasana for as long as you'd like. But I'm going to leave you here. I just want to express my gratitude for you and for everyone at the Y. The Y has been one of the most supportive places I've ever worked at. I'm given freedom to be myself, and that means a lot to me. I'm so grateful for each of you who come in and experience classes with me, the very sweet things that you've said, your Facebook and Instagram. It's such a pleasure and joy to share this practice with you. And I hope this time serves you well. I hope that you're healthy. I hope that you're happy. And I'm sending you love. Thank you so much. Namaste.